Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says if you're planning on international travel, you must prove you're COVID-19 free prior to boarding a flight home. Those battling ALS say the government needs to invest more into finding a cure for the disease. And U.S. political reporter Lisa Daftari joins us to discuss the importance of the U.S. Senate elections taking place right now.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Alberta government announced today that more than 26,500 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine have been rolled out. That accounts for about 57% of vaccines already given to Albertans. As for today's numbers, the province has over the past 24 hours, there are 843 new cases of COVID-19. The testing positivity rate is 8.2%. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Henshaw, says our province's hospitals are being strained right now with 919 people in hospital battling the virus. That includes 140 in ICU. There are also 26 new deaths reported earlier today.
We have had more than 1,100 deaths due to COVID-19 in this province. My heartfelt condolences go to the family and friends of these individuals, and also to anyone who is mourning the loss of someone they loved. Over this last year, this virus has tested each and every one of us. The way we were used to interacting with each other and the world around us changed dramatically. This is a new year, but there is still a stretch of hard road before us. COVID-19 is still here and still threatens our health system and the well-being of our friends, family, and neighbours.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says our country has some of the strongest travel measures in the world when it comes to combating the COVID-19 virus. He says as new strains have been discovered in many countries, now is the time to double down to keep Canadian families safe.
Starting Thursday, to be eligible to return to Canada, travelers must have a negative COVID-19 test before boarding their flight. This is in addition to the long-standing mandatory 2-week quarantine once people arrive. Officials are reviewing travelers' isolation plans, and if the plan is not up to par, the travelers will have to quarantine in a federal facility.
Now be sure to visit our Facebook page and let us know your thoughts about Ottawa's new plan that begins Thursday with travelers in Canada coming back to Canada have to test negative for COVID-19 prior to boarding any flight. We may use some of your comments on tomorrow night's newscast. A number of politicians, both federally and provincially, revealed that they spent the holidays overseas during the pandemic, and many have been reprimanded as a result. Yesterday, Alberta Municipal Affairs Minister Tracy Allard was forced to resign after it was revealed she spent the holidays with her family in Hawaii. Today, a Saskatchewan cabinet minister has stepped down following a trip to California. Premier Scott Moe accepted the resignation of Joe Hargrave, who traveled to Palm Springs on December 22nd. A Manitoba senator has also landed in hot water for taking a personal trip to Mexico on December 28th. A spokesperson for Don Plett, the Tory leader in the Senate, says he flew to Mexico, then had a change of heart and returned home on December 31st and went into self-isolation for 14 days. A new survey suggests that close to half of Canadians visited with friends or family over the Christmas holidays. The poll by Leger and the Association for Canadian Studies found that 48% visited with people outside of their households, compared with 52% who said they stayed at home. The poll also found that those who visited outside of their homes, 34% did so once, 12% did so 2 or 3 times, and 2% did it more often. The survey suggests that 62% of Canadians have little to no confidence in our country's ability to limit the spread of COVID-19. A healthcare aide at Bethany Riverview Continuing Care Facility in Calgary has become the province's first healthcare worker to die from COVID-19. According to the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, 61-year-old Jo Marie Jane Coral passed away on December 28th after being infected with the virus.
WCB has in fact confirmed that he contracted COVID while on the job. The facility itself is in outbreak status. I had an opportunity to speak with his daughter. She had indicated in that conversation that as far as she was aware, her father was healthy. At this point, we're not aware of anything that may have been pre-existing. We now know that he is the first healthcare worker to die from COVID in Alberta. His loss is tragic, of course. A loss is tragic at any time of the year, but of course you throw into the fact that, it happened over the holidays, and then we are in the midst of a pandemic. Members who work in healthcare, members who work on the front line, they know that COVID is real, that the pandemic is real. And this passing just brings that to the forefront, or shines a light on that fact that they deal with this daily every time they go to work. And when you're working in the midst of a pandemic, it's really dangerous.
Coral leaves behind a son in Edmonton and a daughter in Burnaby, BC. A man with ALS has created a petition lobbying the Canadian Minister of Health, asking for faster treatment options for those who are suffering with the disease. As Mike Equine explains now, the petitioner says that the government hasn't done enough to help those who have ALS in Canada.
Norman McIsaac has ALS, and he says that ALS patients sometimes have to wait for over a year or longer to be able to get access to Health Canada approved treatments. But with this petition, he is hoping to start a pilot project where those who have ALS can get access to treatment within 3 to 6 months. The petition closed today, and there were over 25,000 signatures from Canadians.
It means that from coast to coast, in all 10 provinces, in all 3 territories, people mobilized to make sure there were 25,000 signatures on this petition.
There are around 3,000 Canadians that live with ALS.
With the way the disease works, it means that there will be approximately 1,000 people who will be diagnosed in a year, and about the same number of people will die from the disease. It is a neurodegenerative disease, and essentially it is progressive paralysis. So somebody might first start to feel weakness in their hand or their foot. They might start to trip. They might start to have difficulty speaking, and those could be all initial symptoms that they might see. And as the disease progresses, they will eventually lose their ability to use their hands, to be able to walk, to be able to speak, and to be able to breathe eventually.
McIsaac says that waiting years to receive approved Health Canada treatments is unacceptable.
My voice is affected, but I can still speak. If I can get the next treatment fast enough, I may be able to keep this voice.
The next step for McIsaac will be writing a letter to the Canadian Minister of Health, Patty Hajdu, and the ALS caucus tomorrow to ask them to take the petition seriously. For Bridge City News, I'm Mike Equine.
One lucky undergraduate agriculture student in Lethbridge will be receiving a $10,000 scholarship. It's being presented by Exhibition Park and the Rotary Club. Officials say the Agriculture Scholarship Award's purpose is to recognize the importance of the ag industry in our community and support local students in the field. Additional scholarships will be awarded, but exact numbers will be determined by fundraising successes. With COVID-19, the dairy industry has been one of the hardest hit. In addition to challenges from restaurant closures, Canadian milk producers are competing with a growing business of plant-based alternatives. Some say that the future looks bleak, while Alberta Milk remains very confident. Ainsley O'Reilly has the details.
In 1972, there were 42,000 dairy farms in Canada. Now there are 11,000. If that trend continues, that number will be cut in half by 2030.
Dairy is not going anywhere. The sector is collapsing.
Alberta Milk argues the opposite, stating they are finding innovative ways to drive consumers.
We're seeing stronger milk production than we've ever seen. We're seeing innovation across the board from on our farms to processors.
Dairy farmers spend about $130 million a year to remind Canadians that they are producing a public good, and Canadians have the duty to consume that public good. That's not a good business model today.
In 2020, the industry of plant-based alternatives in Canada grew by $300 million, an increase of 31% in just 1 year. Consumers are looking for different options. For the first time in Saskatchewan, Regina-based company Mara Food Group will bring production of oat milk to the province. Agri-food is a clear economic driver in southern Alberta, and we could see the province opening its doors to similar operations.
I think there's an awakening in Alberta beyond oil and gas. I mean, I think Alberta is finally seeing its potential in agri-food, and that would include alternatives for sure.
1/4 of the province's dairy farmers are in southern Alberta. That's 150 dairy farmers. So when you buy milk, it could be from someone you know.
You're supporting that family that's maybe on your hockey team, that sits in your church group, that contributes to your local fundraiser. These are local families that you're supporting when you choose to buy dairy products.
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
If you've ever considered a career as a mayor or city councillor, you can begin the process now. Nomination forms are available for anyone who wants to run in the next Alberta municipal elections, which will be taking place October 18th of this year. The forms can be picked up at each city or town hall. To be eligible to run for council or mayor, each candidate must be at least 18 years of age, a Canadian citizen, and must have been a resident for the local jurisdiction for at least 6 months immediately preceding nomination day. Lethbridge Police need our help in an investigation involving a hit and run from around 1 p.m. on Tuesday. They received a report that a pedestrian was struck at the corner of 3rd Avenue and 3rd Street South. The victim is in hospital in serious condition. If you're a witness to the hit and run, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. When it comes to helping young men realize their true potential, there's a Christian organization in Saskatchewan which is doing its part to help. Dallas Block with Rock Solid Refuge says this group tries to help young men aged 13 to 18 to grow into responsible adults.
So obviously they're coming for a reason. Things aren't going well in their lives or in their families and their situation. And at some level or another, we want to help them see what their responsibility is. As they grow into young men, we want them to mature and become people who not only see what they need to take care of for themselves, but also see the world around them and where is it that they're supposed to contribute and be productive members of society even, and really be a blessing rather than what their lives were.
Catch the full interview with Dallas Block from Rock Solid Refuge and Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our program. Saskatchewan is reporting 286 new cases of COVID-19 today, along with the deaths of 2 elderly women. Just over half of the new cases are in the Northern Health region. Health officials say the Pfizer vaccinations are set to begin this week in Prince Albert. Moderna vaccinations will also begin for eligible healthcare staff and long-term care residents. Manitoba is reporting 118 new cases, along with 5 new deaths, with 4 days left before Code Red restrictions are set to expire. Premier Brian Pallister hinted last week that the restrictions are likely to be loosened. The province's Chief Officer of Health, Brent Rusin, says they're going to try to continue to monitor the impact of the holiday gatherings and will release an update to the health orders later this week. BC's provincial health officer says their province had administered just over 24,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Bonnie Henry says the province aims to vaccinate around 550,000 people by the end of March.
Our focus for the next month till the end of January, so from the doses we received already to February, is residents and staff of long-term care. And we have said that from the very beginning. Those are the people that we know need our protection most. And that's approximately 70,000 individuals across the province. We also know that people who are living in assisted living are also at higher risk because of the communal living setting for this to be spread very, very quickly. And that's approximately 13,000 individuals. We also want to make sure that those people who are in hospitals right now awaiting placement in a long-term care home are protected so that they can get into those care homes as soon as they're available. And that includes about 2,000 people in awaiting long-term care placement.
South of the border, in an effort to speed up what has been a sluggish rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine, New York's governor has threatened to fine hospitals up to $100,000 if they don't finish their first round of inoculations by the end of the week.
The hospitals have been receiving vaccines over the past 3 weeks. Roughly 46% of the total allocation. These are the hospitals that have used the existing allocation the fastest and those who have used the existing allocation the slowest. You have the allocation. We want it in people's arms as soon as possible.
U.S. President Donald Trump made a last-ditch plea to Georgia voters, urging them to turn out for the crucial Senate runoff elections. He also reiterated his voter fraud claims and said he will continue to fight to stay in the White House.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Hello, Georgia. By the way, there's no way we lost Georgia. There's no way. That was a rigged election, but we're still fighting it, and you'll see what's going to happen. We'll talk about it, and I just want to thank you. This is some crowd. You know, Biden was here today also. They had 14 people in 3 cars. No, there was no way, and I just want to thank you. You know, I've had 2 elections. I won both of them. It's amazing. And I have to tell you that the stakes of this election could not be higher.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden was also in Georgia, telling voters at a drive-in rally in Atlanta that the power is in their hands to change the course of the nation's future by voting in today's crucial Senate elections.
You voted in record numbers in November. Your voices were heard. Your votes were counted. The will of the people prevailed. We won 3 times here. And now, we need you to vote again in record numbers. The power is literally in your hands. Unlike any time in my career, one state can chart the course, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next generation.
U.S. political reporter and one of our regular contributors, Lisa Daftari, says politicians, in particular Republicans, need to put the November election results behind them and focus now on the very important Senate elections.
It's to say that, well, the focus on the presidential election makes us lose focus on Georgia, and that because we are so divided as a country, because even the Republicans are even further divided and splintered right now, that they won't be able to focus on a future, to move on, and to strengthen themselves and their party base in the next 4 years.
Lisa will have more on the very important Senate elections, plus how Iran may be launching a new attack against Israel. That's coming up after business news. There's a push by some activists in the United Kingdom who support LGBTQ2+ efforts to not allow Christians from preaching or saying that homosexual activity is sinful. Hear more details in an interview the Global News Alliance did with the Christian Institute's Simon Calvert.
LGBT activist and General Synod member Jane Ozanne has launched a multi-faith campaign to challenge biblical teaching on sexual ethics and biological sex. The Ozanne Foundation's declaration to affirm LGBT practices includes a call to ban all attempts to change, suppress, or erase a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Institute Deputy Director Simon Calvert said the move was an attempt to criminalise evangelical Christianity.
Well, we've been warning Christians that there are some LGBT activists who want a veto on the preaching that goes on in churches, on the pastoral work that goes on in churches, and even over the prayer that goes on in churches. And I'm afraid what's happening is that in some cases we are seeing activists cynically exploiting revulsion over conversion therapy in an attempt to attack evangelical Christianity. And Christians really are going to have to make this a matter of prayer, and they're going to have to be on the lookout for what the government does in response to these calls.
You know, the average temperature for this time of year in southwestern Alberta is -2. Fortunately, we'll be well above that for the foreseeable future. A complete look at the weather forecast is coming up. It was another nice day here in southwestern Alberta. We had some sunshine mixed with cloud and nice and mild. Jeanette Roche is here now with a full look at the weather picture. Jeanette, it's the first week of January, but our temperatures should remain above seasonal?
Yes, they sure should. In fact, some of our temperatures could be reaching around 8 or 9 degrees by the weekend and early into next week. In fact, earlier today in Lethbridge, we were the warm spot in Alberta at right around 5 degrees this morning. So not too bad for this time of year for sure. Let's take a look at tonight's forecast. Tonight, a few clouds, low -2 with temperatures rising to +2 by the morning. Mainly sunny on Wednesday with a high of 9 degrees. Thursday, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 2. Sunshine Friday and a high of 1 degree. We should also expect quite a sunny weekend with highs of 6 on Saturday and a high of 8 degrees on Sunday, all the way up to 9 degrees for next Monday with partly cloudy skies. Average high for this time of year is -2, so we're well above average for sure. And the average low for this time of year is -14. The highest temperature on this day was in 2006. It was 12 degrees, and it was -36 back in 1996. Sun rose this morning at 8:28 a.m. and our sunset tonight at 4:46 p.m. Let's take a look at our national forecast. Over on the West Coast, a 40% chance of rain is expected in both Victoria and Vancouver tomorrow with a high of 8 degrees. Up in Edmonton, mainly cloudy tomorrow with 6 degrees the high. Calgary becoming sunny near noon and a high of 5. Over in Saskatoon, mainly sunny skies with a high of 2 degrees, but it'll feel more like -17 in the morning with that wind chill. Regina, sunshine with a high of 0, and also with the wind chill, going to feel more like -14. In Winnipeg, high of -1 and clearing skies. Over in Toronto, overcast skies with a high of 2 degrees. Mainly cloudy and -3 with gusty winds up to 40 kilometers per hour in Ottawa. And over in Montreal, mainly sunny skies with a high of -1. Over in Atlantic Canada, 30% chance of flurries is expected in Fredericton and a high of 1 degree. In Halifax, 60% chance of showers and flurries are expected. Temperatures sitting steady near 3 degrees. In Charlottetown, flurries or ice pellets are expected there with a high of 1 degree. And it's going to be a foggy one for our friends in St. John's, Newfoundland with a high of 4 degrees, but with a 2 to 4 millimeters of rain expected and quite a bit of fog tomorrow. And there you go. That is your weather for this first Tuesday of 2021.
Today's weather is brought to you by Runner's Soul, Lethbridge and Southern Alberta's sole specialty running and walking store.
An association representing independent travel agents says a new federal COVID-19 testing requirement has thrown the industry into a tailspin. Ottawa announced that Canadians will need a COVID-19 test to be allowed back into the country for most international travel as of Thursday. The Association of Canadian Independent Travel Advisors says with no warning given, travel agents were left scrambling to contact clients on trips or who are planning to take trips. The group says instead of helping the industry to recover, the testing will further discourage customers who are already wary of traveling during the pandemic. Amazon says it's bought 11 jets from Delta and WestJet Airlines to boost its growing delivery network and get orders shipped faster. The Seattle-based company says it is the first time it purchased airplanes for its delivery network, but did not disclose how much it will be paying for the aircraft. Over the past couple of years, Amazon has been leasing planes as it works to deliver most of its packages itself. It says the 11 aircraft will be converted to hold cargo instead of passengers. BMO Financial Group is selling off its private banking business in both Hong Kong and Singapore. The Canadian bank did not disclose financial details of the sale to J. Safra Saracen Group, but BMO says Saracen is well positioned to service its private banking clients in Asia. It says Hong Kong and Singapore markets remain important, and it looks forward to continuing its service to corporate and institutional clients across Asia. The Rubik's Cube may have been invented by Hungarian, but it can now call Canada its home. Canadian toy maker Spin Master has completed a $50 million U.S. acquisition of the legendary and sometimes frustrating puzzle. Hungarian puzzle enthusiast Erno Rubik invented the toy back in 1974. It became a commercial success after it launched globally in 1980. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 154 points in the day to finish at 17,682. The Dow was up 167 to 30,391. The S&P 500 was up 26 points to 3726, and the Nasdaq was up 120 points to 12,818. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $2.22 today to $49.84 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 11 cents to $2.69 US. Gold was up 4 cents to $19.50.05 US an ounce, and silver was up a cent to $27.56 US an ounce. Wheat is at $277 per metric ton, barley's at $279, canola's at $648, and corn is at $318 per metric ton. Live cattle were up $2.75 to $115.05. Feeder cattle were up $1.40 to $137.43, and lean hogs were down 30 cents on the day to $70.93. The Canadian dollar was unchanged over the past 24 hours at 78.92 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the federal government announced that beginning Thursday, all travelers returning to Canada must have a negative COVID-19 test prior to boarding an aircraft. And in addition to a mandatory 14-day quarantine, officials will review each traveler's isolation plans. If the plan is not up to government standards, travelers will have to carry out their quarantine in a federal facility. Republicans need to put the November U.S. election behind them and instead focus on the Senate elections, which are taking place right now. U.S. political reporter Lisa Daftari will explain why shortly and why control of the U.S. Senate is so vital. That interview is coming up next. There are some in the United States who say the Republicans need to move past the recent U.S. presidential election or they may lose the country. To chat about this in more detail is U.S. political reporter Lisa Daftari joining me once again from Los Angeles. Happy New Year, Lisa.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Now, Lisa, political analysts say many in the United States should forget about the November election and instead focus on Georgia's Senate runoffs later this month.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think Republicans across the board, for the most part, believe that there was cheating in the presidential election in November. Some believe that we should accept the Biden win and move on because Georgia and the Senate race there is obviously very, very important. And others believe that no, we need to stand our ground and prove that there was cheating. So this is going to be a very important week for Republicans across the board. Many traveling to Washington, D.C. to protest along with the president rather. But to the first point, it's to say that, well, the focus on the presidential election makes us lose focus on Georgia, and that because we are so divided as a country, because even the Republicans are even further divided and splintered right now, that they won't be able to focus on a future, to move on, and to strengthen themselves and their party base in the next 4 years.
As the 117th Congress convened over the weekend, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was reelected. Now, she needed 214 votes, and Lisa, she actually got 216.
Yeah, it was a close one, Nancy, wasn't it? Look, she has lost some popularity among the new, young, progressive Democrats in Congress. There was some rumors a few weeks ago that the likes of Ilhan Omar and AOC wanted people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to exit the party. They don't believe that the establishment, older Democrats represent who they are, who's far more socialist, far more left, and far more progressive. So it's surprising that she did win, and in some ways not surprising because she's been such an establishment and such a part of the Democrat Party. But this is her last time, as everybody knows. So it's a nice farewell for her.
Yeah, very close, like you mentioned. Lisa, U.S. Marines are preparing for a rising challenge from China's military, and they're doing so with new technology and island training. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think the world has woken up to the threat that the Chinese government presents in all fronts, whether it's militarily here in the Navy that we're talking about in this story, cyber capabilities, manufacturing capabilities, stealing intelligence, tech, apps. 5G across the board, there is this wake-up call to see what China is up to. And because China has an interest in expanding itself, particularly in the China Sea and in the surrounding areas, the United States has received this kind of alert that they need to also start practicing, having drills, really beefing up their capabilities on all fronts.
A 21-year-old man who hid from police in an East Texas church was charged with first-degree murder in a shooting that left the pastor dead and 2 other people injured on Sunday.
Yeah, well, this is a really sad story. I thought we were done with hearing about these church shootings. And for a while we had, maybe it was because people weren't going to church and quarantining, but yet again, we have another story where a church was targeted and innocent people who were praying on a Sunday. And those individuals, how they are, of the most pious, those who came out in the aftermath of the quarantine, probably so excited to get back to church, back to praying with the community, and this should happen. It's a horrible story.
Now, turning to business news, Bitcoin traded near a Sunday record of $34,800 following an 800% surge. Why has Bitcoin become so popular?
Right? It's absolutely absurd. I have asked so many people to explain this to me time and again because I just cannot wrap my mind around this fictitious thing that is so now it is in such high demand, and it doesn't even exist. It's not a coin. It's not a precious metal. It's not cash. Bitcoin. Years ago, Bitcoin came under my radar as a form of currency for terrorists in ISIS to use because it was non-traceable. And they were using, pay me, half a Bitcoin if you want this artifact from a church in Syria. And they were actually doing business this way. Fast forward to it becoming such a fad about a year or two ago, and then it kind of died down. People just sold off their shares. They thought they could just buy pizza with it. Meanwhile, they're probably paying millions of dollars for that pizza. And now, lo and behold, we have the support of banks and some very proper financial infrastructures. And because of that, it's giving legitimacy and backing to the Bitcoin, which has gone up tremendously. If you have one, hold on to it tight, because it looks like it's just heading upward from here again.
The 800% increase is just crazy right now. Lisa, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that Iran may avenge Soleimani's killing after the Biden inauguration. Mossad chiefs say the Islamic Republic would find a moment to avenge the killing of the chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, which took place 1 year ago.
Yes, exactly 1 year ago, we're up to the 1 year anniversary of the killing of the shadowy commander, Qasem Soleimani. And if you remember, he was the mastermind that planned out all the killings and all the horrific terrorist activity in Syria and Iraq. For the Iranian regime. And for over a year now, the Iranian government has threatened to avenge his murder, has not been able to or has not done it yet. But on the anniversary of his killing over the weekend, the Iran parliament voted on an official mandate to destroy the state of Israel. Now, we've heard this threat before. We want to wipe Israel off the map. We want to push them into the ocean. But this is the first time, this is quite historic, where they have come out with actual official legislature that says that it is an obligation now to destroy the state of Israel. This was an exclusive on my website from the Foreign Desk, and you can read more about the story there. But this really ups the ante with where Iran stands with regards to enriching uranium. They're not embarrassed. They are not afraid of sharing this information whatsoever. Their stance is basically, well, the U.S. pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, so we will do whatever we want, and they're proving the fact.
Yeah, it's not the first time that Israel has been threatened, right? Now, in a related story, there are reports that Iran is stepping up its nuclear plans by as much as 20% in uranium enrichment as tensions rise on the anniversary, like we said, of Soleimani's killing.
Yes, and the foreign minister Zarif actually tweeted saying, "Look, we are upping the enrichment of our uranium, and we've notified the UN and the IAEA." They basically are proud. They're chest thumping in a public forum, basically saying the U.S. pulled out. This is really again, whatever the Iranian regime does, you have to look at the timing. This has coincided to be a warning to the Biden administration to say, look, if you want us to play nicely, you have to get right back into that deal. That deal was very good for them. The United States was looking the other way. They were doing everything they wanted. And what was there? A meaningless piece of paper that basically symbolized that the U.S. was giving the Iranian regime permission to do whatever they wanted. Now, the Trump pressure campaign has actually worked in marginalizing the Iranian regime, in really strangling them financially, in not allowing them to go forward with their nuclear ambitions in certain ways. But now that they know that this is kind of like a lame duck period, this is where they're taking the opportunity to tell the Biden administration, either you sign back on or this is the way we're going to go.
You know, we're still in the midst of a global pandemic, but that didn't stop partiers in France on New Year's Eve from having a big bash. Lisa, the illegal rave drew around 2,500 people, and were they all wearing masks?
No, obviously not. This is really tempting fate. You know, I know a lot of people have this, whether they're anti-maskers or they have this belief that we've had enough. You know, we call it quarantine fatigue here in southern Los Angeles because we really are fatigued. But, you know, gathering with your closest 2,000 some friends is really not the smartest thing to do. So obviously, French authorities have were cracking down on these types of gatherings, particularly this large one that you're referring to, which was a rave of some sort. Um, Tempting fate.
Lisa's story, which has made world headlines, is the new variant of the novel coronavirus, which was discovered in the United Kingdom. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning for tougher measures as cases are soaring with this new variant.
Yes, and I don't know if you've had it in Canada yet, I hope not, but here in the United States, we've already detected the case in Colorado and here in Southern California near San Diego. This is going to spread very quickly as well, and especially interesting in terms of timing because people are getting vaccinated and some researchers are saying that this new variant, the vaccine will fight this new variant, and others aren't sure yet. There isn't enough research out there on the new strain that we would know whether or not the vaccine can resist. This is awful. You know, it's been almost a year that the entire world is dealing with this pandemic. We think we have, you know, some sort of control on it with the vaccine coming out, and now this. So Boris Johnson's extremely frustrated with people not obeying the quarantines because if this new variant starts spreading, as you know, there are travel bans in many places in effect to not allow people from the UK to travel. But as I said, it's already been detected here in the United States and elsewhere. I know it's in South Korea and some other countries as well. It's been detected.
Let's talk about how the pandemic and the local restrictions are really impacting a lot of businesses across North America. A lot of small business owners, pizza stores, pizza shops, they're all going under. How about in Southern California? What are you seeing there?
Oh, it is horrific here. Hal, if you drive through the main parts of town here, which are usually just hustle bustle, particularly around the holidays, it's like a war zone. You know, the boarding that went up right before the election because people thought there was going to be more looting and more violence, those boards haven't come down. People have not opened their businesses. I read on Yelp, which is the website that rates restaurants and such, that about 61 or 62% of restaurants that have closed during this time will not reopen. They will not be able to reopen. It's going to be a while before we see any sort of normalcy with regards to mom and pop shops, small businesses, restaurants, etc. Particularly here in Southern California, I know that that's going to be a long time coming. Very unfortunate, very, very sad.
You know, that really breaks my heart. I remember a number of years ago when I was in New York City in Manhattan in Soho District, and I went to this little ma and pa shop. It was a wonderful Indian restaurant, had the best naan bread butter chicken I've ever had in my life. You just went downstairs and,
Yes,
you know.
I think I know what you're talking about, right near NYU.
Yeah, right? So it's just some of the best restaurants around are some of the smaller restaurants that are out there. Now, here's an interesting story. Speaking of New York, a landlord in New York City is facing his own eviction as deadbeat tenants refuse to pay rent. Explain what happened there.
This is such a mind-boggling story. It's sad. It's just sad, but it's reality. Basically, this is a building in Harlem. The owner is an 80-something-year-old man who relied on the small amount of rent that the tenants were paying in order for he himself to pay his homeowners, which is the monthly fee that they pay in these types of buildings in New York City. Now, the tenants have not paid their rent. They're not forced to pay their rent. And therefore, this man cannot afford to pay his homeowners. Now, those people living in the building will get government assistance in order to live and pay for their groceries, etc. But this man has no other recourse. He has no other source of income. So it just shows you the reality of, again, the middle upper class getting really squeezed here. I know that everyone's suffering, and I'm not trying to minimize the lower socioeconomic brackets, but in this particular case, you look at the fact that they have recourse and this man does not. And it's a very, very upsetting story. And this is just one story that was written up. But there are many, many such examples that are not written up and people who are forgotten about. These are the same people, like the mom and pop shops, like the small business owners, the family run businesses, the middle class people who have no recourse, and their business, their way of doing business was their way of life and their livelihoods, and that is no longer. So my heart goes out to him and his family, and I hope that there's something that can be done to save him.
Yeah, wherever you're watching at home, make sure you get out and please support, if you can, small business owners. They're the backbone of the North American economy. One of our regular contributors, U.S. journalist Lisa Daftari, thanks again for your time.
My pleasure.
What do you do when you see your teenage son falling deep into addictions like drugs, alcohol, and pornography? A parent could be left feeling overwhelmed and helpless, but there is hope. For over 10 years, Rock Solid Refuge has been the residential program of choice by families as a faith-based solution for 13 to 18-year-olds with addictions, behavior, or substance abuse issues. Joining us today via Skype from Shaunavon, Saskatchewan is the founder and executive director of Rock Solid Refuge, Dallas Block. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, even from a distance like this.
Absolutely. Now tell us about what led you to starting Rock Solid Refuge.
My wife and I had gotten involved working with young people in some local churches that we were a part of, worked as a youth pastor for a number of years. And during the time while I was youth pastoring, a young man that I knew, and I knew his family, got caught up in crystal meth. So at 16 years old, he was a crystal meth addict. And his family exhausted all of the resources that were available to them at that time. And because I was a close family friend, I ended up quite involved in that whole journey. And after exhausting all of those resources for a teenager and realizing there's no long-term treatment program, especially Christian-based in Canada, we said, hey, let's see if we can start one. And so that started the journey of starting Rock Solid Refuge.
Amazing. Now tell us why you focus on boys ages 13 to 18 for this residential program.
Yeah, you know, really what it came down to was when you see young people in trouble, you have to start somewhere. And so we started just working with guys, and really our heart is for all young people across Canada that are struggling with life-controlling issues of all kinds. And so, Lord willing, if we get an opportunity, we will work with girls as well, whether on this campus that we currently have or other campuses that God gives us the opportunity to open up across Canada.
Mm-hmm. And do you know if there's a similar program like this for adolescent girls who are struggling? Why is this, specifically targeted for boys?
As far as we know, parents are having to reach outside of Canada to find a program for teen girls that is, long-term Christian residential treatment based. So it's a huge need, and it's just simply not being met at this time.
That's unfortunate. Now, you mentioned Rock Solid Refuge is faith-based. So what principles are the foundation for this work?
We really look at the principles of responsibility, maturity, and charity as being kind of the foundation of what our goals are for the young people that come into Rock Solid Refuge. And so obviously they're coming for a reason. Things aren't going well in their lives or in their families and their situation. And at some level or another, we want to help them see what their responsibility is. As they grow into young men, we want them to mature and become people who not only see what they need to take care of for themselves, but also see the world around them and where is it that they're supposed to contribute and be productive members of society even, and really be a blessing rather than what their lives were, which was really quite a struggle and a challenge for the people around them. We hold students accountable to honesty and to respect and obedience, and those are kind of foundational principles for us here. And we work primarily through the three basic means of role modeling, relational influence, and authority. And so we see that as kind of like a three-legged stool that we want to keep in balance at all points. We're a highly relational program. But even as we look at those things, being a distinctly Christian program, we see that all through the lens of a Christian worldview, understanding that our God is a God of grace and truth.
Okay, so Dallas, explain maybe what happens when a boy first enters Rock Solid Refuge.
To be honest with you, the first day at Rock Solid Refuge is actually a bit traumatic. For parents, they're bringing their young person, sometimes from across Canada, to this place that many would say is in the middle of nowhere, because Southwest Saskatchewan is a pretty wide open country. And so here they are bringing their young person to our location, and they're really signing them over into the care of people that they don't know. And so it's a pretty traumatic experience actually for the parents. There's often tears. And for the young person, everything that they know is kind of being taken away from them. There's everything that they're familiar with is kind of gone. They lose their cell phone. That's pretty traumatic as well. But we work pretty hard really quickly to help them understand that this is a place that they'll be safe. This is a place where there is relationships. This is a place where people will like them and enjoy working with them. It is a structured environment, but it's a structured environment where they can find help and healing.
I would imagine that's extremely traumatic, because I would imagine some of those kids are there not willingly, right? Like their parents are kind of making them do this, and maybe they're addicted to a drug that they no longer have access to. Like that's got to be crazy hard for the staff too to deal with. You must have addiction specialists and all kinds of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, every student does sign in, and they recognize that they're kind of in a position where their options are pretty narrow because the struggle and the challenges have gotten pretty drastic in their situation. So they do sign in, but it is, often kind of like a last resort for all of them. And so it is a struggle. And at the end of the day, like I said, our staff work hard relationally as fast as possible. And that's really what becomes kind of the foundation of all the other work that we're able to do with the students, is that they recognize that we really actually do care and we want their best interests. So that really gets us a long ways, actually fairly quickly.
And the boys that come to the refuge, you provide school education, so they're not falling behind even further in school. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, that's been an incredible journey for us as well. We were able to get our accreditation with the Ministry of Education in Saskatchewan really early on in our time of running this ministry. And the Ministry of Education in Saskatchewan has been a great partner in the work that we do. They really get what we do because they understand that the kinds of young people we work with here are the kinds that are falling through the cracks in the public system. And so they're excited to work with us. We have a fully accredited school, grades 7 to 12 we can teach. So whatever grade level that students are in when they come, they just pick up from where they're at. Our teachers assess those things and then just get them going in their education. It's also one of the areas that is the quickest place to see some change happen and some hope come into them. A lot of them have been labeled as maybe not very smart, maybe they didn't do very well in school, but truthfully, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's opportunity, it's surroundings, it's choices, and now they have that opportunity in a setting that really gives them the ability to succeed in education.
That's very inspiring. Now, Dallas, you also have an equine assisted therapy program, right? So tell us what the boys learn from this and its impact on them.
Yeah, that's been incredible as well. So we've been able to do horse riding here for a bit, but this past summer we were able to start an actual equine therapy component. And so one of our staff became our full-time equine facilitator. And so when a new student would come in, he would just spend the morning, his first morning would be with our equine facilitator and with horses. And it's just kind of eased that transition incredibly. And so, rather than kind of coming up to lunch their first day, kind of, still not sure about being here and everything, these guys are coming in from outside just excited about what they just got to do, not only with the equine facilitator, but with these animals that are just amazing and incredible creatures.
It's amazing what horses can do, what an animal can do to boost your mood, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long do the boys stay with you?
We are a 12-month program, and so our program is structured around 6 different levels, and each level just has a different amount of time that is expected of it, but we really believe that lasting change takes time. It's not enough just for them to come off of the substances and that the chemical addiction is broken, but rather lifestyle choices and really a new lifestyle has to come into play. And we also want to work with just fundamental beliefs. And so it's an incredible joy to us when we see the students being willing to wrestle with their fundamental belief system as a way for them to see change come into their lives.
So are the boys that come to you only from Christian homes? Not necessarily, right?
No, we're open to young people coming here from all kinds of backgrounds. So a young person's background has nothing to do with whether or not they'd be accepted into the program here. And we're just excited to get applications of people that are in need and see how we can serve them. There's plenty of times we've had students that have come and, you know, if you gave them a Bible and said, "Can you find the book of Genesis for me?" They'd be like, "I don't know what Genesis is." And that's fine. We're glad to just kind of take a journey with them and explore what the Christian faith is all about.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you're in the middle of nowhere, so Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, but of course you also said that it's not just kids from Saskatchewan that are coming, they're coming from all over Canada. So what's your capacity and are you looking to expand?
Yeah, our capacity is actually just 10 students at this point, so it's a pretty small student body. And yes, we are definitely looking to expand. Really, our greatest challenge with that is just resources. It's financial. We really believe that we have the program, kind of the structure that we would need to expand what we're doing. Finding staff, I think there's people out there that are passionate about what we're doing and would love to come on board with us to be a part of what we're doing here. And facilities can be built. And so our hope is, Lord willing, that we'll be able to build more houses out here. And so, you know, we kind of see the ideal group size as being around 8 students in a group. And so building houses out here so that we would have the capacity of 30 to 40 young people, guys and girls, in fact, would be kind of our ideal to see this site developed. And then we'd love to see an opportunity to open up campuses in other parts of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Now, with a capacity of only like 8 to 10 students, you must have a long waiting list.
Yeah, I mean, the waiting list fluctuates. It goes up and down, but currently, yes, there is a pretty long waiting list right now. So it's really sad when we get phone calls and we say, well, it's going to be a few months before we have a bed available. We are actually working right now to open up 4 extra beds even in the new year. So we're hoping that in January we'll have 4 extra beds to offer. We have a house on our campus that we're going to repurpose into a transition house. And so we'll be able to at least serve 4 more. And Lord willing, as resources come in, we will expand and work with more young people.
Right. Do you have any success stories that you could share?
Yeah, a couple of them that come to mind right away are, right now we have 4 either staff or interns that are previous students from here. And so, you know, 4 of these young people that we had in our program, they graduated. Some of them went on to other things and then came back as full-time staff. We have a couple of interns as well. And it's just incredible to see them come into this place and want to give of themselves for the good of the young people that come into it, which really fits our model of, you know, responsibility, maturity, and charity, right? And so they become a really amazing example to the students that are in the program as well. Another couple of just amazing success stories, and this is really the heart of what we do, which is 2 of our guys that are here right now recently gave their hearts to the Lord Jesus Christ. And so those are just some of those moments where you're like, this is why we do what we do. And one of those guys shared in a church just recently that we did a presentation in, and part of what he put into his presentation was he was just amazed at how God has changed his desires, that he wants to do things differently. He doesn't want to go back to the old way that he was, even though he knows when he first came to Rock Solid, he just wanted to get through it and get back to his old life. That's not his desire anymore. So those are those times when we're just so amazed by what God is doing in this place.
So, Dallas, how can viewers help your cause in rescuing teenaged boys from addictions?
Check us out online. rocksolidrefuge.com is our website. We've actually got a lot of resources there as well. So parents who might be struggling with a teenager, maybe it's not to the point where you need kind of some residential treatment or something like that. We also have some other resources that are available for parents. We want people to get familiar with who we are and what we offer in some of those ways as well. We also really do need financial partners. We have a student sponsorship program called Partner for Change. You'll find that on our website. We need monthly donors as well as one-time donors to help us. And hey, you know what? We're going into the Christmas season. We really want to be giving families the opportunity to have hope. So if you're really enjoying some great family time, remember those who are having more of a struggle of it. You might be in crisis. And we're helping a lot of those situations.
Thank you so much, Dallas, for your time. It looks like we are out of time, unfortunately, but Dallas Block with Rock Solid Refuge out of Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.